germs.
Welcome back, ladies and degenerates. We're back.
We're back
It's
in the shack.
17 of Shack Out Back.
Jim, isn't it going to be amazing when we launch merch and it'll say back in the shack and it'll have a poorly drawn image of our faces onto a translucent PNG?
It'll be us in a raggedy old fucking broken building. This is what we're in right now. This is the lore of Shack Out Back. Me and you are surviving, I don't know, the modern world in a shack together.
The modern world in Manitoba.
Yep. In the middle of the bush.
Is Manitoba a... Never mind.
Is Manitoba a province? Yep, I think Manitoba's a province, Dan.
What happens in Manitoba? I feel like nothing.
I don't know. Why don't you go there and ask?
What the fuck happened in Manitoba? What's the last thing to happen in Manitoba?
I don't know. Probably something horrible. Probably some kind of horrible... Talking about something horrible. Where we live, this isn't very funny. Where we live, this week, there was a horrible terrorist attack.
Yeah, a horrendous 20-year-old fucker drove into a...
Muslim family.
So you can narrow down where we're from by that, because that's like not just province news. That's like Canada-wide horrendous news.
That's like worldwide news, I think.
Yep, pretty fucked.
Yep, we had the Prime Minister and the Premier and all the people from the cabinet here a few days ago. The vigil. It
Insane.
Was horrid, yeah.
Fucked. Like, I've been thinking about that the last couple days, and it doesn't even feel real. Like.
Anyway, on that cheery news. Yeah, my heart goes out to all those, like, that family. Like, holy shit. Can you imagine being 9 years old?
Yeah.
Your whole family gets killed by some fucker in a car? Like, Christ. I hope that guy goes to jail forever.
Yeah, I hope he rots with no way out, truthfully.
All right. So, on that happy
note...
So,
how are you doing?
I'm doing good, Dan. You want to start with the biweekly breakdown here?
Yes, let's discuss biweekly breakdown.
You're going first, Dan. You're going first. What have you been doing the last 2 weeks?
What have I been doing? I've been playing a little bit more of Doom Eternal. I've been busy with transitioning from my training area of my job to, like, my home store. So I was learning a bunch more shit about that store and doing all that type of stuff. We've been playing quite a little bit more of Hunt and Deep Rock when we can.
Hunt is fun. I've been watching a lot of Hunt, like, tutorial videos the last few days. I bought my first legendary hunter. I got my loadout that I want to try on her, and I want to get to it. That's what we're doing after this. We're getting to fucking Hunt.
We're playing some Hunt. We'll be seeing people in the bayou if you also play Hunt.
We'll be gunslinging.
Other than that, I started reading a book.
What the fuck is the book I'm reading about?
I just don't know what it's called. It's like it's like a minority of one, or the voice of minority of one.
What the fuck is
Minority
it about?
Report?
Minority Report? Is that what you're reading?
It's not Minority Report. It is
Jesus
about.
Christ.
It is about
300 pages.
It's kind of hard to. It's called an orchestra of minorities.
Okay.
It's kind of hard to explain what it's about. It's by an African author, by an Igbo author. Okay. So Igbo, it kind of starts, and it has to give you a lot of preface for background. In Igbo culture and religion, they believe that everyone is followed around by a chi, and a chi is essentially a spirit. Not spirit form of you, but just a spirit that is linked to you that will follow you around and inhabit your body.
Okay,
so
like a guardian angel kind of thing?
Kind of, yeah. Like a chi goes from person to person. They're not linked to one person. So when you die, it will get reborn into a new body, essentially.
All right.
And the book is being told from the chi's point of view, talking to the god about what his current host did and why he should not be punished, but we don't know what his current host did. So he basically says, I need to start from the beginning, and he talks about this dude's life that he's been inhabiting. So
you always find cool fucking books to read.
It's very interesting, and it's by one of my favorite authors. I'm gonna butcher the name, but it's Chigozie Obiamba.
Okay.
It's very, very interesting.
On your recommendation, I borrowed a book from my friend Jaden.
Oh, yes.
I borrowed 15 Dogs the other day. I haven't
How are you
read
enjoying
too much
that?
of it yet. I haven't read too much, but I'm excited to read it. Bi-weekly breakdown. Let me get my list up here. I started watching a lot more Shudder movies, and I've watched like 7 or 8, so I'm just going to talk about the 3 that I thought were really interesting. Yeah. There's a new one called Caveat, which is about this guy who lost his memory going to a house to babysit a crazy lady. It's got a creepy bunny in it. It's pretty good. There's an Icelandic movie called Rift with a couple of dudes who just broke up and they get together, and it's pretty ambiguous as to what's going on in the story, but I thought it was really good. Cinematography is really good too. Yeah. And Reunion, which is that movie I talked to you about last night that I watched last night.
Yes.
I'm gonna spoil that one, so skip ahead a minute if you care about this movie called Reunion from 2020. So it's about this lady who goes back home to be with her parents. It's very Autumn Sonata in that way, but at the end of the movie, it turns out she was a fucking like homunculus grown in a vat that this couple made, and then she killed her homunculus sister for being too perfect.
A homunculus will do what a homunculus will do.
Yeah, I've also been watching a lot of Ovens Rocky Mountain Bushcraft, which is a YouTube channel by a Canadian guy who lives in BC, and he's just like a gruff man. He reminds me of one of my dad's friends, one of my family friends actually a lot. He's just a man who goes out in the bush and catches stuff and eats fish.
And just does stuff outdoors.
I've been playing a lot of Pokemon White 2, and I've never beat it, so I want to beat it. I'm nuzlocking it, so doing a little hard mode. It's been fun. That's what I've been doing the last few days. But after that, I don't think there's too much. There's the thing is with quarantine, right? Is that there's all this stuff you want to do, and you start doing a lot, but there's still a lot of other stuff you want to do. I'm feeling that lately. I'm feeling like there's not enough hours in the day to get done what I want to get done.
I mean, we're opening back up more recently, so we're looking forward to having you and Pat and Brandon over. We're going to be playing some board games. We're going to be hanging out in the future, so that's very good.
We're all got our shots too, eh? Kids, get your vaccine.
Yes.
It's the only way we're getting through this is if you get your fucking vaccine.
God, yes, please.
And if it makes me infertile and kills me in 20 years, I don't care. So, getting down to the topic this week that I picked. It's a Jim pick this week, an exciting Jim pick. Role-playing games, pen and paper role-playing games. We're talking D&D, we're talking Pathfinder, we're talking Mothership, we're talking lots of shit this week.
We're talking everything.
So the way I thought we'd talk about this is like how we got into D&D, some of the stuff we've played and some stories and shit, and then just go from there. Like a very loose thing like we do every week.
Okay, yeah.
It might be a little bit inscrutable if you haven't played role-playing games before, but
might be a little bit complicated to follow.
But I don't think it will. I think we're pretty good at keeping things
think most of our audience will have had an experience with D&D. Yeah.
So Dan, how did you get introduced to D&D? Like what was D&D for you before you started playing D&D?
How did my name, last surname, get into D&D?
Jeff.
My name Jeff, get into D&D. I don't remember what exactly caused me to start being interested into D&D. I can list off the things I know. It wasn't that it was for a lot of people. It wasn't Critical Role. I'd never heard of Critical Role up until quite a bit getting into D&D.
Critical Role isn't even that old in like the scheme of things too, right? Like they started in 2015.
Oh yeah, that's not very old at all. Well, I thought it was way before that. Wow.
No.
It might have been related to, and as lame as this is, it might have been related to Stranger Things, which got me thinking of D&D.
Oh really? Okay.
But I don't really know if it was a certain person talking about it, or more so just because I was looking into different types of hobbies and stuff, and I think that was around the same time I was batting around the idea of starting like wargaming and like Warhammer type of shit, and I decided to look at some, because I'd always been interested a little bit in it, but I was always like, I have no clue where to even start with D&D. Like, is it a complex game? Do I need a bunch of shit? Do I just need one book? And then I bought the Lost Mines of Phandelver starter kit.
Yeah.
And it is an amazing, not even just saying about an amazing adventure for starters, it is an amazing adventure just like period. It's a really good box for value. It's like $20 or $30 I think max.
Yeah. I have both of them. I have the starter kit, which is what that's in, and the essentials kit. And people say the essentials kit is better, and that's the one I'm running right now. But both of them are really fucking good.
Yeah. So I got started with that, and I've always been a DM. I've played a couple times, but I'm a DM first and foremost with pretty much any tabletop RPG that I play. So I ran that for a couple of my friends in high school. I ran it for Leroy was in the original campaign for that. So we kind of ran that, and I thought it was insanely interesting. And looking back on it, I noticed there's a lot of stuff that's like, wow, I really shouldn't have let them do that. Like, I remember the dragon in that book is supposed to be like big and mean and powerful, but Leroy had the idea because he was a dragonborn that he might be able to reason with it and talk with it.
Yeah.
So it resulted in him being able to talk with it, and due to rolls, it was helping them out traverse the land.
Oh my god!
Fight for them.
They fucking like got the big bad evil guy to help them out.
So it wouldn't fight for him, but it would like fly around the land and bring them to areas.
Oh my
and looking
God.
back on that, it's like, wow, I
That's
really
a little,
shouldn't have let them do
that's
that.
a little too lenient there, Dan.
But also, it was my first time, and it made a story that I'm still telling now.
Yeah, you're still remembering. Yeah.
Yeah.
I want to talk about how I got into D&D.
Yeah.
Too. So I'm a big podcast guy, and I started out being a big podcast guy in high school, like back in 2010, 2011. And one of the first podcasts I listened to was this podcast called Drunks and Dragons, which was a real play D&D podcast, and it's so old that they started off playing the first few seasons are them playing 4th edition.
Oh, God.
Which they don't sell anymore. It's hard. No one plays 4th edition because no one likes it, and it's hard to get any stuff about it. But they don't really. They changed their name to Greetings Adventurers so they can get like actual brand deals and not be stuck because their game has drunks in it. But
true. Huh.
They were more of a conventional like a Critical Role-esque sort of thing, but they were a weekly podcast and they were like an hour long, and it was just big, wide arcing story or whatever. But that got me to be like me into like, oh, I really want to play this game. And then after you did Minds of Fendelver, you bought another book, didn't you, Dan?
Yes, I bought Horde of the Dragon Queen. I think I bought them both at the same time. I bought Horde of the Dragon Queen and the next one, the sequel.
Yeah. And you were like, Jim, do you want to play D&D? And you were like 17 and I was 21.
I was 28 and I was 4.
Yeah, and I was like, yeah, shit, I'll play with you. And I love all the stories we have from that first campaign. So what is your perspective on our first campaign that we did together? Because it was pretty rough too.
So yeah, I think that's... I consider myself a above average DM. I think I'm pretty good at ad-libbing. I think I'm pretty good at thinking
you're
on
really
the spot
good at
and working around.
You gotta be. We're doing a DM too.
I think I am too lenient sometimes, especially, and I know I am, especially with player death. I'm going to have to get better at it with Mothership, because Mothership is a dangerous game.
Can we tell the story, my favorite story of player death when I was playing with you?
Say it.
This is the only time we've had one of our players die. I almost died. So our first campaign, I played a barbarian minotaur named Malk.
I know what you're going to say. I just remembered.
So I played a barbarian minotaur named Malk, and I got this magic item that was like made me invulnerable to damage. And if I hadn't drank it at an exact moment, a boss would have killed me, and that would have been the end of my character, but it didn't happen. So we did that campaign for a while, and then we got kind of sick of it, and we didn't do it for months and months, and Dan was kind of like, oh, let's just run Minds of Fendelver again. So it was me and Dan's girlfriend Cassie and Leroy, and Cassie had the first turn, and her dwarf lady moved 30 feet, and it was immediately killed by 3 goblins. It was so funny. That was the first thing that happened in that fucking session.
That's what's up with D&D. If you do specifically run stuff by the rules exactly as stated, sometimes it's just fucking stupid.
It just fucking kills you, yeah.
It's
especially
just dumb.
Well, we were running 5th edition games. That's what a lot of those books are based on. So when you're in like level 1, level 2, it's like survival horror. You can die really easily.
Wizards can have what? Wizards can have 5 or 6 HP or something at level 1.
It's 6 plus your con modifier.
Yeah. So if they have
if it's minus, it could be like 4 health. Yeah.
So I do remember that, but I remember playing Horde of the Dragon Queen quite a lot, and it was definitely a rough adventure. There was a lot of stuff that was very obtuse for players to try and think of. Or
I think that the biggest... I had a lot of fun. Here's my few critiques I'd have of our first campaign together. Because the first time I was playing D&D, where the first one was I wanted to play more of a character who did like... who thought on his own. I like playing the character more than like playing the game.
Yep.
So Cassie and Leroy don't talk, so I had to be like the face of the party basically when you're interacting with NPCs, which I didn't want to do. And secondly, there was a lot of obtuse shit in Horde of the Dragon Queen where we just couldn't figure out that you had to change on the fly. And stuff like, I remember we went into a cave. It's basically... The plot of Horde of the Dragon Queen is like the Dragon Horde's coming back. It's a cult, and you have to go fight them or whatever. And we were in this cave, and there was this monster called a gibbering mouther or something, and it was a hard NPC, and Dan was like, I fucking hate just running. I remember you saying, I fucking hate running all these monsters in this cave. So you just made it like a cool guy, and we were talking to him, and I just gave him like a joint, and he got high with us, and we just like, he just said, oh, there's magic over there. Yeah. It was really fun.
Yeah, and I think I don't think that is wrong. I think a lot of people online, there's a lot of really bad opinions about D&D online. Mm-hmm. But I think that is what makes D&D, because that is
it's the interactions.
Unique.
It's the random
it's the interactions.
Stuff,
yeah. It wouldn't have been fun if you walked in and I said, okay, combat, and then it killed one of you and you ran out of the room.
That I will say that's one of the worst things about Dungeons and Dragons is that like when I listen to or watch a Dungeons and Dragons podcast, like when I watch Critical Role, I fucking skip the combat because it is not fun to watch.
It's a lot of embellishments, and especially if you're doing like a podcast on it, it's just a lot of embellishments about what you do and how you do it.
I do it during, like, I'm running a game right now, and I do it all the time when I'm like, oh, how do you want to kill this guy? Or you do something like this and it deflects and stuff, like, just to keep people interested. But like, if you're watching like 100 episode show or something, it's so fucking boring. Yeah. I think that a lot of what Hoard of the Dragon Queen was set up to be was a lot of like big battles which we weren't keen on. I remember we stealth through a lot of it, and the stuff that I remember most was like, there was this dude we had to escort in a caravan. His name was Oin, and he sold birds, and you played Oin, and he was like the most perfect character. He was so fun, and you would like go around and just be Oin, and we protected you from dying, and we gave you our last health potion. Like, that's the shit I'm going to remember from that campaign.
Yeah, it's not the random battles. You want to know, do you remember Hoard of the Dragon Queen also had a lot of go to town, go to field, go to ruins, and then at the ruins you figure out you need to travel back to the town, and then at the town they say go. There was a literal point in that story about halfway through where you had gone from the town to the big cult camp like 2 days away, and then at the cult camp you had to go all the way back to the town, and then a girl in the town was like, oh, did you not see this thing at the cult camp? You have to go back, travel again.
Oh, I remember that.
Yeah, and I was like, that is fucking ridiculous.
Okay, getting away from the nitty-gritty stories, I will say that, because you've run Hoard of the Dragon Queen, and you've run Mines of Fendelver, so I ran Ghost of Saltmarsh for you and some other people.
Yes.
And that was a fun campaign that kind of petered out too. And I'm running the Essentials kit, Dragon of Icespire Peak. Yes. And what I found stronger in those campaigns, the campaign settings, is that it's based around one location. Like, it's based around Phandalin, and it's based around Saltmarsh, which is a town. There's lots of NPCs to talk to, lots of quests to go on. You can do stuff in different order. There's always like something going on, but there's a lot more choice as to what you can do for the players.
Yep.
Yeah, and that's, I think we've said it before, but that's really the strong shit of D&D, is just like riffing on each other and having fun, getting into fun situations and doing that stuff. Do you have any more thoughts on 5e before we move on to something else?
So, have you ever played in a game that was truly horrendous? Because I know the old saying is bad D&D, or no D&D is better than bad D&D.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, I have, so what I do in my campaign is, well, you know, like, I change stuff based on what's people find fun and all that, and I run different rules. Like, I change stuff, I homebrew stuff, so things are a little more smoother and fun. And whenever I hear stories online that are horrendous about D&D, it's always adventurers guilds, and they sound like the worst fucking thing to ever be conceived by man. Explain to people what adventurers guilds are, Dan.
So, adventurers guild, from my knowledge, is Wizards of the Coast's idea of how to get D&D to the mainstream audiences who don't have a dedicated group of friends who want to play. So you essentially would sign up as an Adventurers League person, and your comic book stores or hobby stores would be running games. Someone would sign up to be the Adventurers League DM, who would come back week after week and run this. And the adventures are specifically tuned for Adventurers League. Like, you don't really see these adventures online unless you specifically search for them.
No. They're like little one-shot things.
Yeah. So sometimes they're bigger, but the main difference is... it's not like D&D Light, it's almost like a completely different game, because you can't have, if you think about it, obviously, if these people are going from Adventures League game to Adventures League game, you can't give them overpowered items, you can't give them inside jokes, you can't give them things that are not appropriate. So it's very, very by the book, by the rules. You have to do things a certain way.
It's fucking dry as hell and boring and shitty.
You can't sell certain things, you can't buy certain things, you can't have certain weapons, you can't do certain things, you can't go past a certain point, or else it messes up with everything else.
It reminds me a lot of, like, Magic tournaments. like setting up like a Magic tournament. You're thinking like, oh, we have a standard rule set, and you follow it, and you have like a bunch of fucking awful people who don't like talk to people outside their dungeonous basement, who just like fuck about. But like, yeah, Adventurers Guilds don't work. And it's like funny, like if you go on the internet and you go on YouTube and you're like Adventurers Guild stories, you can find like funny stories of people being like, oh, this horrendous idiot was like blah 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 blah. But just imagining, like I can imagine sitting there and just wanting to fucking kill myself, like going through some of those situations of people being like, I want to do this and that, and fighting with the DM and doing 100 different things. Just fucking awful shit.
At the end of the day, it's supposed to make people who don't have a dedicated friend group, but I think it resulted more so in people who have been kicked out of their friend group go to play Adventures League games. So it's kind of a cesspit.
A disgusting hive of scum and villainy. I wanted to move on to, because we played
we play other tabletop games. Let's get the fuck out of D&D. Let's talk about cooler, more mainstream hip stuff.
Yeah, like Starfinder, the coolest mainstream hip fucking role-playing game. Me and you and Patrick and Cassie, you were DMing, and we started this campaign for Starfinder.
Yes.
So I don't even remember. Was it an adventures book you got?
So yeah, Starfinder is Pathfinder, Paizo's
in space.
In space, yeah, Pathfinder in space. And how they did adventure books were, I think Pathfinder does the same thing, which I absolutely fucking hate. You get one book out of, let's say, 4 to 6 usually, and it contains a piece of the adventure. And
they were like little zines, weren't they?
But I hate that, because in Canada, let's just say Starfinder's not that easy to fucking get a hold of. And I think it's just becoming harder. Everywhere that I go, whenever I went to LA Mood, they were always on clearance and always trying to sell them.
Yeah.
So I don't think it was very popular.
No. And the Starfinder subreddit's like got no one in it as well.
It's like dead.
Basically, Pathfinder came about because D&D switched from 3rd edition to 4th edition, and everyone fucking hated 4th edition. So a bunch of people came up with Pathfinder, this new set of rules, this new game to play role-playing games in. And then 5th edition came out and kind of took over the whole space of people playing role-playing games. So Pathfinder's still gone on, and Pathfinder made this subset, like this other game, Starfinder, which has a lot of the same rules, but like there's alien races and starships and like space weapons and shit like that, right?
Yeah.
It was... explain, like, what would you think the problem with that game was? Because I can come up with a few of them.
Starfinder specifically? Yeah. So I will say first, before I start talking about bad stuff, I absolutely love Starfinder's, like, lore. I like the planets.
Oh, yeah, it was so cool.
I have all those books about, like, I forget what they're called, but they're, like, the books specifically about all these different planets in the solar system, and it shows, like, pictures on them, and habitation rules, and animals that would be on there, and their suns. And I have the one about all the monsters and shit, and there's huge colored drawings and how to run them and what they do and where they live. I think that stuff's amazing.
Yeah, it was cool because Starfinder is based on you going in a spaceship about the fucking, like,
there's
universe,
a bunch of weird shit, and that's what I love. I've talked about this over and over with movies, too. I love weird, off-the-wall shit. Just throw whatever weird ideas at the wall, and I think it might be interesting. So I will 100% use Starfinder monsters and locations in Mothership, but what I didn't like was the
how
rules
fucking obtuse
down.
It was.
Yes, yeah.
Like, so in my current campaign, because I'm DMing a 5e game, and 5e, it's got a lot of problems, but it is a lot easier to teach people than a lot of role-playing systems. Like, I have 2 people in it who basically never played D&D before, and they're picking it up and they're choosing spells and they're having fun. But like, we were running Starfinder, and Patrick was like an android stealth character, and Cassie was like a big lizard man who shot shit, and I was like a little bug girl who cast spells. And every time he played, afterwards you're always like, okay, we did this, and this wrong, so we need to change it up next time to do this and that. And it was just like, I didn't know what spells to take and what were effective and what I could do in combat and all this stuff. And I've been playing a Pathfinder video game. I've been playing Pathfinder Kingmaker, which Mandalore Gaming reviewed, and you've seen that too.
Yes.
And I'm enjoying it, but it is, you're right. When I showed it to you, you were like, that looks really complicated. I'm like, oh, it's not as complicated as 5e. It's about the same. And I was wrong. It is fucking complicated as hell.
Complicated.
Yeah, it's just as complicated as Starfinder. There's so much shit in it that you have to, like, figure out. It's awful to try to learn.
Starfinder was just, a game's complicated when the first couple things that are the top rated posts on the subreddit that I downloaded were fucking spreadsheets and flow guides of how to do combat and what you can do and can't do in combat and when you can't do and can do them. My God, there was a lot of like, Patrick wants to shoot his gun and I'm like, Patrick, you need to reload and keep track of your ammunition and do this. And it's like, Patrick, you can't do this. There's shields over here. You need this here.
I remember
because there were energy shields and physical shields, and yes.
Like I remember because you were like, you thought we were gonna play this for a long time. I remember you like had us do backstories and you wrote us like personalized letters.
Yeah.
Remember from the Starfinder Society?
Yeah.
And I was really into my character and Patrick was really into his, and like what I remember from that stuff we were doing was like, oh yeah, we went to the bar and I was drinking Mr. Pibb and Dr. Pepper and Patrick was like running around the rooftops.
Big Mama's bar or something.
Yeah, and we went to a spaceship and it had shag carpeting and we talked to like a hippie guy, but I fucking hated like the mechanics in that game. They were crap.
So I remember some of the battles, but more so I just remember saying what you can't do in a battle.
Yeah.
And a lot of people listen to stuff like that and they're just like, well, just let him do it then. But if you do that, then it'll just result in being a weird 5e in space with less rules.
Here's the thing, is that we are playing a game, we are like playing ourselves here, right? Because what role-playing games are, it's you on the playground playing Dragon Ball Z with your friends, right? You're 5 years old playing Dragon Ball Z. You're fucking shooting energy blasts at each other, but there's rules you have to stick to not make it incomprehensible, like to make it like an engaging event that you want to do a lot, right? And if it's that sweet spot between the rules being too complicated and rules being like crappy, to find that sweet spot to be like, okay, I can do this and do that, but I feel powerful, or I feel like, oh, this really goes along with my character, or I'm role playing with these choices. Like it's a you gotta thread that needle, and I don't know if Starfinder does that because it's fucking annoying to play.
Yeah, I don't think so. I think the lore's there, and I think everything's there, and I think it would work fantastically in a video game.
The artwork and
it's amazing. Everything was really good,
so good. But Pathfinder's not fun, and I'm assuming that a lot of people are gonna disagree with us on that. Like at least people who played role playing games before, because apparently Pathfinder was based on Dungeons & Dragons 3.5 edition, which a lot of people play. When you're playing Dungeons & Dragons, either playing 5th edition or 3.5, because people love it. And that had a lot of like itty-gritty, like you can do this and that. There's different powers and different things you can do. And it's cool, but it's definitely not for me. And that's a personal taste thing.
Yeah, I think Pathfinder's more for people who played D&D 3.5, and then when they saw it go to 5, at least this is how I feel. When they saw it go to 5, it was like, 5 is streamlined and made to get people into the door with D&D, but there's still a lot of rules and a lot of... You can use a lot of special features and multi-classing and do all this cool shit if you want to, but if you don't want to, at the surface, it is a very simple game.
Yeah.
And Pathfinder is D&D 3.5 dialed up to fucking 11. You can do anything you want, but there are rules for everything.
And rules that unless you're playing the game a lot, like unless you throw yourself into and you want to do it, like you keeping track of that and the DM keeping track of that is like a tall order to do.
Yeah, definitely. And if you like it, more power to you, play it.
Yeah, power to you.
It has a lot of... I believe Pathfinder has some board games now. I think it has a lot of... Actually, okay, one thing I did like, and D&D needs to do it better. I think they do it now, but when we were playing, it doesn't. Pathfinder and Paizo did a lot of third-party supplemental things for your game. You could get, like, really nice laminated cards with weapons and stuff on them, and spells and monsters. And I remember at the time, D&D had a lot of stuff that wasn't official. It was, like, through Gale Force 9 and lots of different things like that. But to my knowledge, now they do, like... the deck of weapons and stuff, and you can just buy them, and they're really nice laminated cards to keep track of, and spells and everything.
That's always a problem running role-playing games, right? Is especially when you're the DM. I'm not even talking about the players too, especially when the DM, because me and you both DM, is keeping track of everything. Yeah. Because so I'm going to tell you like my setup for 5e, right? I have a box that has like initiative trackers. I have like little plastic things to see if people are like concentrating on a spell, people are poisoned and all that shit. I have minis, I have grids, I have like printout with all the rules you can do in combat and all that stuff, and none of that stuff is standard. Like, you don't, people say that you can just buy a book and whatever and go play D&D, but it's really hard to,
it would
play
be
properly
and
theater of the mind, that stuff. Yeah, keeping that theater of the mind up is so difficult without stuff like that.
Yeah, and you get it being awkward. I tried theater because I flip-flop on it. I think theater of the mind is very interesting. If you don't know what that is, it's essentially not using a grid on a table. Everything is conveyed as, I guess, the oldest school D&D possible. It's you are X amount of people. Let me lay out the scenario so you can get an imaginary picture of it so we don't have combat and stuff bogging us down. And I think it's neat, but I also think it results in awkward moments where it's like, I want to attack this guy, and you're like, I thought you were 40 meters away.
This. Yeah, are you going for this guy or that guy, or how do I keep track of this guy's health, that guy's health? Like, it's hard to keep up with that as a DM.
Yeah. I think Theater of the Mind works for very small encounters, like optional encounters, or like the random encounters it works very well on, but fuck me, I couldn't even imagine to do it in like a full scenario.
Yeah, can you imagine fighting like a boss with like 12 minions and doing that in Theater of the Mind with a team of like 6 people? That'd be fucking impossible.
Okay, Jim, so let me lay this out. What we've described is we like an RPG that has a lot of weird character moments and a lot of cool things, and we like out-of-game supplemental things like letters and audio files and cool things you can access online. Mm-hmm. And we don't like very long adventures because we like to get in and out with our cool characters and do cool character stuff. It almost sounds like we'd like Mothership, and Mothership is amazing.
Dan, keep the audience occupied. I'm going to go get my Mothership sheet right now.
Yes, I'm going to pull up all my Mothership stuff. Okay, so mark my words, Mothership will be huge. Mothership will be absolutely huge in the next couple of years. It already is very big on OSR stuff and OSR's old school rules, I believe. Mothership is an extreme rules light RPG that is about space, essentially. There's a lot of rules light classes. I believe the whole thing is played with D.
I'm back, Dan. What are you doing?
Hello. I was talking about Mothership. Mothership is played entirely with D10s or
D10s.
D10s. So Mothership is played only with D10s.
I went on the Mothership website.
Oh yeah, you have the printed copy.
I have a printed copy. I spent $20 and I got the rule book, which is a little like card-based like thing. You got the PDF, right?
I got a PDF and then printed it off myself. I'm waiting for the Kickstarter to get the official. I want nice hardcover books.
I think I'm getting that. So when I got this book, it was a rule set, and then when they updated the rule set, they just sent me the updated PDF in my email.
That's so nice.
So what do you need to play Mothership? So when I played D&D 5e, I have the adventure book, I have Xanathar's Guide to Everything, I have the Dungeon Master's Guide, I have the Player's Handbook, I have the book with all our character sheets, I have like a bunch of written notes that I've done, and when I play Mothership, I have my one fucking character sheet, which is a flowchart.
Yep, Mothership is, you can pretty much bring the book, and yeah, the adventures are kind of laid out in pamphlets, which is a really neat, really cool concept.
Yes.
So everything is a little 3-flip booklet, and it'll give you like... Because it doesn't need to give you specifics because it's rule light. It'll give you like a little tiny map and little tiny room markers, like cool things in each room to base it around. You do need to do a lot of like thinking and imagining yourself because it doesn't spoon feed you, but that is what results from really good stories.
So so when we played Mothership together, you ran, what was the adventure called?
I pulled them up. It was The Haunting of Ypsilon 7, I believe.
So it was me and Cassie. I played Tamara Smidgens, I can look at this really quickly, a Teamster human, grease monkey, and we went through basically, and Cassie was like a marine man, and we went through so describe to me what we did in our campaign there, Dan.
So you guys were employed by a mining corporation to go down to an asteroid colony that has been having some troubles maintenance-wise, and they were kind of losing staff. You were delivering something to them, though. That's all your mission was.
Yeah.
And when you delivered something to them, some people came out and were like, you can't leave. They were like, there's a biological hazard. You essentially can't leave. We don't really know what's going on. We're kind of losing people. People are acting weird. And there was a lot of little snippets of cool things to go and do. You could go and look at the bedrooms, or you could kind of hear rumors about people in the showers and shit.
Tamara and Mr. Marine put our little, like, fucking Sherlock Holmes hats on, and we go talk to everybody and prod at every room.
And it resulted in I guess skip ahead about a minute. It resulted in a Cthulian creature that could... it was scared of water, so people that were infected by it were scared of water, so there were little clues about that throughout the environment, like people breaking showers and everything. And it was essentially the Blob, I believe. It could eat people and suck them in, and it would grow in size. So you had to go down into these ruins in this little space station and blow it up or fight it, and that's another good thing. You could do a lot of stuff with it. You could try and leave. You could go to this place. You could go to this place. You could go in the air ducts.
When I was playing this, I remember everything. Me and Cassie got off the ship. We went around and talked to people in the crew, and I really liked this character called Sonya you were playing. And then we went to the kitchen. There was a robot man. He gave us like coffee or something. We were clawing through the vents, and then finally we were like, okay. And people were getting like abducted because people were getting abducted in the station. So we brought Sonya with us. We went down into the mine, and like there was that creature down there, and Sonya got eaten by it, and I took her ID badge and I put it around my neck, and me and Cassie shot that thing till it died. We were like, do you want to just leave? Cassie was like, no. And we fucking killed it. And then we went upstairs and we activated the destruct sequence on the ship, and then we got the robot and the cat, and we got them together on our ship and flew into space, and everything blew up behind us. It was fucking awesome as hell.
Mothership is also known for, I fucking love it because I love running stuff like this because it's interesting to see all your people's reactions about it. Mothership Adventures are known to have a lot of supplemental material, so they'll have like I just bought one today that it sends you like postcards with it that you can print off and give to people during the campaign, and they're like journals that you're finding around. And that one specifically, The Haunting of Ypsilon 7 or 14, whatever it was called, Mothership Adventures are also known to have audio logs.
Oh, yeah, that was so cool.
Yeah.
I found a cassette player and a cassette. I still have it on my inventory because I want to use this character when we play again. But, like, I've got a boombox and a cassette and a bunch of stuff from that thing. But we, like, played a cassette and you're like, okay. And then you showed us an audio file, and it was like, we're on the station. You need to come help us. There's something going on. It was so cool.
Yeah, so I have a couple more of those. I have quite a few adventures that I want to start playing. I have... Cosmic Entities, which is like a little zine which comes with a bunch of optional stories, and then I have one called Moonbase Blues, and it has the same type of stuff, audio files and everything. I have Tau Sigma 7.
We should explain.
Looks more Cthulian.
We should explain how Mothership works too, right? Because all that stuff we just talked about came from a flow chart on like 3 pages that Dan had running as a DM.
Yep.
And when you make a Mothership character, the whole character sheet is a flow chart. So it's like step 1, choose a name. Step 2, pick a class. Step 3, pick some gear. Step 4, pick some stats, and that's it. And it all flows into one another instead of like a 5e character sheet where you can have upwards of, if you have spells and gear and companions and stuff, you could have like a 4-page character sheet and still feel like you don't have enough room for all the stuff you have.
Equipment is the one thing I remember making characters in D&D 5e, because I did it a lot when I started. I just fucked around and made cool characters, and it always was very cool until it was like, okay, now this is your equipment, write it down. And I'm like, I get 10 tinder boxes and 50 feet of rope and ladder and bedroll, and it's like, I'll never use
and
this.
You have to like erase shit and do all that stuff. Some of my players, they keep their character sheet as a PDF, which makes a lot of sense because you can change stuff.
That's cool.
And I gave them all like not the standard 5e character sheet. I have one that I use that I got from Reddit that I like a lot, and I gave them another one that has a lot more room for like equipment and more stuff that you're gonna be going over a lot. Like I'm going to say, like, here's the thing, is that Wizards of the Coast, they came up with Dungeons & Dragons 5e. It's a good system. It works. But, like, I feel, and I'm sure you feel this way too, you need to supplement it with a ton of shit to make it fun.
Yeah, like, it doesn't, especially now. Fuck me. D&D 5e has a lot of fucking books that are, like, technically optional, but... if you're just playing with the base rules, you are missing out on a lot of big books.
I will say that, like, there's lots of good websites, like the 5e wiki site that gives you all the stuff that's available for 5e. You can just basically give your players that, and they can know everything and not have to have any of the books. I will say, too, that, like, I disagree with a lot of stuff they have in 5e2 because what they do when they want to implement new things is they'll have these things called Unearthed Arcana. They'll release in like a press release, and it'll have like subclasses and different rules and stuff. Here's an example. So there's this thing called sidekicks, which are basically characters you can bring with you in a combat, and the Essentials kit has the rules for it that they printed at the beginning, and I really liked it. And then they had an Unearthed Arcana about it, so you can go from a sidekick from level 1 to 20, and I really liked that too. Like, it was pretty good, pretty well balanced and stuff like that. But when they put it in Tash's College of Everything, when they published it, they fucking nerfed it to hell, where you basically just don't want to have a companion with you because they don't work right. Like, it's crap. Like, I don't know why they put that in the book and changed it so much. Like, it's something I totally disagree with. And if I was an Adventurers Guild, you wouldn't have companions anyway. But if I had a DM that was like, we need to play it by the rules, I'd be like, well, fuck this, I'll just leave.
And I think that's what Adventurers Guild, going back to Adventurers Guild, I think that's what it ends up being for a lot of people, as a stepping stone, and then I think the idea is you're supposed to get a functioning group out of those people.
Yeah.
But more so, I think it's like, wow, this is horrible, and then you just make up your own thing or start DMing.
The best things about role-playing games are, 1, hanging with your friends, having a good time. 2, having characters, going on adventures as a different person, experience things through a different lens. That's really fun. 3, having an excuse to get out of your house and eat crappy food.
True. I like the stories. I will always remember some of these stories. I won't remember when we fought 3 goblins with a short sword, but I will remember when you guys went on the space station and talked to the hippie space guy with the shag carpeting and rugs in his futuristic space vehicle.
I remember the time where I was playing a character in Lost Mines of Fiddelvin who hated goblins, and you were like, Leroy, his character's just like Goblin Slayer, and he laughed, and then you changed the ending of that fucking mine to have that scene from Goblin Slayer where he encounters a bunch of baby goblins, and me being like a man with a conscience, like, I'm not gonna fucking kill them, so I like threw them out into the woods or something. But like, yeah, that's the thing you do with Dungeons & Dragons. You can just change shit on the fly. It's awesome, and then your players won't even know.
Yeah, but talking about the future, I cannot wait to be back and hang out with people because I'm so excited to actually run Mothership in person.
Yeah, me and you, Cassie and Pat, sitting together, playing
so
Mothership.
excited.
I can't wait till Pat resurrects his fucking, like, edgelord android character. What was his name again? Phaeton X?
Phaeton X or something like that, because it was based on the fucking rapper or some shit.
They had a fun backstory too. Yeah, I'd love to just like take our Starfinder characters and pop them into Mothership and just like go through some of the stuff like that. It'd be so
Maybe
fun.
even Bran can join us because he plays 1,000,000 RPGs.
Yeah, he plays too many fucking RPGs. Did I tell you? He told me that he's playing a campaign where all the characters start out as 2 classes and they level up the classes simultaneously. Yeah. Can you imagine trying to keep track of like 2 different character sheets basically for one character?
Because he plays the Star Wars RPG and he was saying the battles are like hundreds of people's big, and I have Jibberbockies and Flibbergoopies and Jabba the Hutts and all this stuff.
Yeah, see, me and Dan, we love role-playing games. I DM every week. I play Dungeons & Dragons, love it. But Brandon's like a sway little hard-on man for role-playing games.
Brandon has his Star Wars characters, Flibber, Glipper, Flep, or whatever their names are, whatever
he can talk about
Star
it
Wars
when,
names are.
I think he has some good stories from that stuff. He can tell us some stories if he's back on. But I remember I was playing the Essentials kit. I was playing as a player, and Brandon was DMing. And I was playing with my degenerate friends. And this is one of my favorite D&D stories where we were like, oh, we need some horses. And no one was playing seriously. And we went into the horse stable. And Brandon was playing seriously. Like, Brandon was playing all these characters straight. One of my friends was like, we need to collect horse semen. And just started jerking off all the horses in the stable, trying to collect fine horse semen. And we had to fight a bunch of guards. We basically got fucking almost killed in town. It's awful.
Huh. That's sure a way to go.
That's kind of the weird shit that can happen in D&D. So if you ever want to jerk off horses in an imaginary land, be sure to play D&D 5e.
Fantastic.
What do you want
to do? You want to do one more thing before we wrap it up?
What else is there to talk about? What are your final thoughts on role-playing games, Dan?
My final thoughts on role-playing games, I think they are definitely, you will like them if you don't take yourself too seriously. And the biggest thing is you have to find a right group, because I have played with only one group that I would deem definitely not my group, because the DM took it extremely seriously and extremely by the books, and it just resulted in being a buzzkill more often than not, and it was awkward for the whole table. Find yourself a good group of friends and try Mothership.
I always try to make things more fun for my players than...
Me too.
I prioritize my fun too, but I want to make sure that they're having fun when I'm DMing. And I love playing D&D, and I use it as a springboard. Like, I've written backstories for characters and sent them to my group so they can read them. I've done stuff like that. Like, I've done my own rules, and I've changed things. It makes you think. It makes you, like... It's a good hobby to have, because it's just like an active thing, like an active conversation you have with your friends and with yourself, because you can like go over these rules and stuff. It's really fun. Yeah, play Mothership. Mothership's fun. We've said it before, but if anyone wants to play a role-playing game and they're like, I don't know how to play this, like I'm not too sure about the rules or whatever, what I would recommend, I think you would recommend too, is go online, look up the Mothership rules, print out some character sheets, and run one of those little zine campaigns, because you'll fucking love it. It's really fun.
It's like 2 or 3 hours, if that, and you'll know if you like it, and I believe it's no cost investment. Mothership is free to get into if you don't want a hard copy of the rules, I believe.
A no-brainer decision for us to play Mothership, and I'd love to play as a player again, because I like being a DM, but fuck, I love playing the game too. So what are we... We're closing out episode 17 of Shack Out Back. The dusk is coming. The fire's...
Manitoban moon is long in the night.
Are we in Manitoba? Is that the lore? We're in Manitoba? I've never been to Manitoba.
Nah, no one has.
There's a prairie dog out there cooing at the moon. So what are we doing? What are we doing for episode 18 of Shack Out Back, Dan?
Jim, episode 18... I would like to watch... I've never watched it. I want to watch Eraserhead.
A movie! Dan picked a movie!
I've never watched it, so I want to watch it.
So, what are the rules for COVID? Are we allowed to be in each other's houses?
Yeah, now we are.
But I have the nice Criterion edition. If people want to watch it, it's on Netflix too. Eraserhead is. Be forewarned. Don't watch it if you're under 18, I would say, and if you have a loose grasp on reality, because it's pretty disturbing. But me and you, and we'll watch it and we'll talk about it, because I fucking love that movie. I love David Lynch.
We'll do both watching and talking about it. I'm very excited, but that's all it for tonight.
Yeah, how do you want to take us out here, Dan? That was a good episode. I liked it. What do you want to do? How do you want to take us out?
Jim, I always take us out. I'm gonna make you the awkward one. Take us out.
I'm gonna say all my characters that I've made for D&D 5th edition. You ready?
Do it. Yes.
There was Malk and Shriek, who was a tiefling rogue. There was...
Oh, yes.
There was I forget what it was, the little kobold lady I played in that Santa one-shot we did.
You played disgusting characters.
I played Pickle Pete and Donabella Fiasco, and I Verna Nightbreeze from the Essentials kit. I played lots of characters. Really fun.
Goodbye, ladies and gentlemen.
Bye-bye.
Good night, darling.
Goodbye, Jim.
Bye-bye.
Good night, Dan.
Good night, everybody.